Well, hello guys, welcome to our latest vlog. This is Ben from Airline2Sim, and we are here with a look at the aeroplane that we've been waiting for a long time. I'm talking about the Flight Sim Labs A320-X. And here she is on stand 1 at Valencia Airport. Valencia, see I'm doing the pronunciation correctly for our Spanish viewers. And we're going to take a quick flight today from Valencia. See, look, it didn't take long for the pronunciation to go. Valencia, we're going to do a quick flight from here across to Ibiza. Now, I'm no expert with the Airbus. I got to put that out there straight away. We obviously have done a training program for the Q400. We are making, as we speak, a training program for the Boeing 777. The Airbus is a new beast. We do have 3 A320 pilots on the team, and I did desperately try to get at least one of them to come around to my office today while we did this, but they're all flying. One of them is in Split in Croatia, one of them is in Barcelona, and the other one was doing a night stop in Dusseldorf, and did the late flight last night and is flying back to Heathrow at some point today, and was a little bit angry with my early morning phone call this morning. So I haven't managed to get one of our A320 pilots here to show us around this aeroplane. But I'll tell you what I have done is one of our guys has a proper old school set of Airbus FCOM manuals. Now, the FCOM is called the Flight Crew Operating Manual, and in the old days, when you joined an airline, you were given a big set of manuals which showed you how to fly the airplane, and absolutely everything is in here, down to how the seats work, and it shows you where the switches are for the electric seats, and it shows you how to close the window. Look, it talks here about turning there's a little pin and you need to flick it. Now, of course, FCOMs generally come on an iPad, or they come as a massive PDF, and it can be quite difficult to actually find stuff really quickly. And the beauty of this FCOM is that everything is here, and it's kind of split up into sections, so it's really quick. So a lot of the pilots prefer these old paper manuals, and they do occasionally crop up on eBay or places like that. So if you can get hold of one, I would definitely recommend you do it. And my Airbus guy said to me, look, if Flight Sim Labs have modeled this aeroplane in any way accurately, you should be able to just open the Flight Crew Operating Manual, and you should be able to just simply fly the aeroplane by the book. Just follow it step by step. It'll tell you what to do, what to press, what to look out for. I'll give you a few little tips, and you should be able to fly the aeroplane if they've done it properly. So, have they done it properly? That's the big question. So welcome then to Airline2Sim, Flight Sim Labs A320-X, first look by the book. Let's do it. The first thing that you notice is the fact that the outside textures are really nice quality. Now, bearing in mind that this is in FSX, this is not in P3D, so we can't turn up the detail level as high as we would if we were using P3D. But even so, just look, you can actually read the writing on the static port here, and this is the same as well. It continues all around the aeroplane. The detail, you can even read the writing on the nose gear here. So there is a light, and the light comes on when the parking brake is set, which it isn't at the moment because the chocks are in. But you can actually pretty much read the writing on the nose gear. How nice is that? Just look at the texturing here. Just look at the sheen. So there we go. There's the air inlet valve. There's the static side for the FO and the captain. And then moving down, there's the engine. And the fan blades do move around a little bit in the wind, but on the ground here in Valencia today, it's a nice warm day. In fact, it's evening time now. It's about 8 o'clock at night. So it is beginning to go dark. We've got some sky textures from Active Sky, ASCA, and Active Sky 2016 doing the business. And there's no wind today. It's really hot. It's about 30 degrees Celsius right now. So There's no wind, so the fan blades are not turning around, but they do turn in the wind, and you can hear them clanking around as well, which maybe we might hear a little bit later when we get to Ibiza. And then coming around the engine, and again, look at all these high quality textures on there. You can actually read all of the writing and the hoist point and the engine oil fill. It's really nice. And then moving along the wing, again, nice textures. You can see everything. And then the aircraft registration, it's really, really nicely done. Moving around the back of the wing. So this will count as a little bit of an impromptu walk around, which is something that is part of the flight deck setup. So you'd be checking things like the wings, you'd be checking the conditions of the tires. There are fan brakes as well. One thing with the A320 family is brake temperatures are an issue. The brakes in the Airbus are apparently very good, very effective. But one thing that they do get is pretty hot, so we will need the brake fans on. They do work, and they do cool the brakes, and you can hear them working, and they're pretty noisy in real life, and you can actually hear them from the flight deck if the window is open, which we can show. So again, you can read the writing there about the tire pressures, and they're moving down the side. This is obviously the Vueling livery from Spain, the Spanish flag there and the European flag, with probably one less star at some point in the next year or so. A little bit of politics, and passing under the tail, and the outlet, the drain mass there, which is heated. And then there's the outflow valve, which is open, which is correct on the ground. Something that you often see with plane spotters. They think that a hatch has been left open, but it's the outflow valve. Here's the bulk cargo door. So the aft cargo compartment is hydraulically operated. Now, the aeroplane is fully shut down at the moment. There's no power to it or anything else. So I'm not sure whether you can open it. I think there's a little pump. So let me do that, and... oh, there we go. Okay, now, you'll notice it's opening incredibly slowly. And I think this is because you have to hand crank it open if there's no hydraulics. And I think that's the reason it's opening so slowly. If we get on the aeroplane now and turn it on and turn the hydraulics on, you'll notice that it's opening. It will open a lot quicker. But that's pretty cool. It's pretty cool that they've gone to the trouble of actually modelling the cargo door opening really slowly if there's no hydraulics, which I'm guessing is simulating someone cranking it by hand, because there is a hand crank. That's pretty cool. All right, let's keep moving on. Engine number 2, and again out to the wing and the back. The number 2 engine. Again, nice detailing there. And then back round to the front. And again, another hydraulically operated cargo door. And if I try and open this, I've assigned it to a key. So forward cargo door. And you see the handle move. And again, it moves incredibly slowly. And that's because there's no hydraulic power to the airplane. It just comes up really slowly. And I think the rear one should be open now. Yeah, the rear one is open. Doesn't look to be open all the way, does it? It looks like it's stopped. But there you go. You can't actually open the doors all the way unless you've got some hydraulic power. Okay, it's still opening, but very slowly. Okay, all right. So look, it's going dark, and we really want to get inside the airplane, and we want to get going. So let's call some stairs. Okay, that. Oh no, it's still going. It's still going, but it looks like it's going to stop in the same kind of place. Okay, let's get some steps, and let's get on the airplane. Okay, so the GSX boys have arrived, and steps are going into position. So let's hop on board, right? Okay, after you, let's go on board. So, here we are then, on board the A320X, and it's our first look at the flight deck. And first thing that you can see is that the pilot seats have been moved back. The seats in the A320 are electric, which is quite nice, certainly coming from the Dash 8, which was the airplane I've flown the most. And the electric controls are here on the seats, and you can actually just drag the seats forwards and backwards, which is quite nice, and you get the noise of it as well. So we'll leave the seats, yeah, the seats are as far out as they'll go, which is quite nice, because we've got a couple of big pilots on board today. And then we want to have a quick look around the flight deck and just make sure that there's no flags on anything, that the engineers haven't played around with anything and left anything in a dangerous position, because engineers do apparently have a habit of doing that. So everything looks all right to me. We're going to dump our briefcase down here behind the pilot seat. And as you can see around the flight deck, there's lots of areas for stowage, and the escape rope up there, and we've got some ship's logs here, and then across this other side, oxygen mask and fire extinguisher and circuit breakers, but we'll come to all those when we get to them. But we're going to do this by the book. It's a first look by the book, so let me jump in the pilot's seat, and let's first thing we're going to do is get the window open, because it's the end of a very hot day here in Valencia. Pretty warm. So let's get the windows open, and we just drag them, and you can see there's a little pin here in the track, and we need to lift that pin up when we close it. The way to check that the doors are closed in the A320 is to the windows are closed, is to pull the little pin up. And then when it's closed, we want to make sure we get this red ring. As long as we've got the red ring, then the window's closed and all is well. So we've got the windows open. We've got a little bit of fresh air. Let's get our trays out. I just knocked the footrest down. We don't need that yet. We'll probably need that for some longer flights later. Okay, so let's have a look at the FCOM and see what it says. So it says check the wheel chocks are in place. Well, they were. It says check the landing gear doors. Now, if we remember from when we were back outside, now what that is just checking is that the main landing gear doors, which are here in the belly of the airplane, are closed and not open. They're sometimes opened if the ground crew want to do some checks on the landing gear and that kind of thing, and they'll open them up. And if we suddenly pressurize the hydraulics, then they can close and someone can get trapped. So we want to just make sure that they're closed and there's no one fiddling around down here, which there isn't. So that's all good. So back inside the airplane then. Final thing is that the APU area is clear, and that just means that we're not parked against a wall. So if we start the APU, we're going to blast a hole on the wall or anything like that. We are parked out and stand, so that's all fine. FCOM asked me to check the engine masters are set to off, the engine mode selector is set to normal, and then finally, this is quite a big one, is that the wipers are off. If the wipers are set to on, then as soon as we energize the aeroplane, the wipers will start going and scratch the windscreen, and that is very bad. Very, very bad. That is number one on the list of things that will get you a meeting with the training captain or the chief pilot of the fleet, and they call it a tea and no biscuits meeting. In other words, you're offered tea, but because you're in trouble, there won't be any biscuits. Next thing we want to do is check the batteries, and you see the batteries are turned off, and the battery voltage is 27.4 on battery 1 and 27.9 on battery 2. They need to be above 25.5 before we start them up, and they are. So let's start battery number 1, and we count to 5, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. You can see the voltage takes a little hit while it starts. And there we go. Okay, now you'll hear a little bong. So the aeroplane's now energized, but it's now just running off the batteries, and we don't want to leave it in this situation for too long. So what it's saying is that if the external power light is on, then we can turn the external power on. So let's get the APU started. So we look down here, down to the McDo, as it's called. Hold down the bright button, that brings up the options, and then we can click options. We can click external controls, and you can see the ground shocks are already connected. So let's connect the GPU. Because it's a pretty warm day, let's get the ground air conditioning connected as well, and you'll hear that. The ground air is now being blown through the manifold into the aeroplane, and it doesn't need the packs to do that. We got the left forward door open, and I shall leave it on the McDo menu for now. Right, let's go to the overhead, and the FCOM tells us to turn the external power on, and you'll hear a big clunk, and you'll now see the aeroplane will begin to initialize. It will do some self-tests and some other things. You'll hear the big blowers, and what we're listening for is the triple chime, or the triple click as they call it, the click, 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 and that means that the aeroplane's run through its self-test. Two of my Airbus guys have said don't press anything in the A320 for at least 3 or 4 minutes after you start the airplane up, because there's so many computers on the plane, they're doing so many different things. Just let them do their thing and don't start pressing buttons until the aeroplane is completely happy, because the Airbus is it's a bit like a high maintenance, a bit like an attractive girlfriend. She's a beautiful thing, but she's a little bit high maintenance, so you have to handle her with caution. Alright, so we've turned the external power on. Next thing that we want to do before we do anything else is check the APU fire test. So we just hold the button down. We're not going to get any cautions at the moment because the ECAM is still booting up, but we've got the master warn and we've got all the lights on, so that all looks pretty good. Right, let's turn the screens on because we're not going to see anything without those. And that's the PFD. That's the ND. Roll the wheel. Roll the ECAM round. The lower display round. And the navigation display on matey, as they call. It's a very British pilot thing to call the first officer matey. So matey side. So we do that. Alright, cool. So that all looks pretty good. Now, as you can see, we've got a couple of cautions. There are some things that we need to have a look at, but we'll come to that in a moment. Let's continue to follow the FCOM. So we've got the external power on. We've done the APU fire test. Now, my Airbus guys tell me that one of the first things you want to get going in the Airbus is the APU, and the reason that you want to do that is because if the APU isn't working, then you've got a bit of a problem because you can't start the engines, you'll need a ground cart and lots of other things. So you don't want to find out that the APU is not going to work until 5 minutes before departure. So you really want to get that up and running, especially the first flight of the day, more than anything else, just to make sure it's going to work. So let's do this. APU starts. APU master switch is on. Wait a couple of seconds. We should see the APU page, which we've got, and then press start. Now, according to the book, what we should see, okay, first of all, you can hear the APU because the windows are open, and it says at 95 RPM the start on light goes out, which is up here. So let me open that and then go. Okay, I'm going to need to do that again. Okay, so suspend your belief for a moment. So we're looking at the lower ECAM screen, but we're looking at the overhead. So 95% start on goes out, that's this one, and the avail light comes on. APU gen comes online on the upper ECAM, which is this one. And then the page will, after 10 seconds, it will go back to the ECAM door page. There's 95%, there's avail, there's APU avail, and then this page will disappear after 10 seconds and go back to the door page. That's what the FCOM says. So that's probably about 6, 7, 10 seconds. Perfect. So the APU modeling is absolutely spot on. Good start. Right, so we've got an APU running. Let's continue with the FCOM. So it says cockpit lights set. So you've got quite a lot of cockpit lighting in the Flight Sim Labs A320-X. Now you do have the ability to turn on the map light, which is this one here, which is just shining down there. We have a light for the captain's table, which is there. We can adjust the lighting of the backlighting on the FCU, which is there. So that's dim and that's bright. We can also adjust the brightness of the digits themselves. We have the map light for the first officer's table. Then we have the map light for the window, which is actually in the window frame itself. We can adjust the overhead backlighting on the overhead. We can have the flood lighting at the front. Whoops, I just clicked my table. Bring that back. I need somewhere to put my pre-departure coffee. And then we also have floodlight, which is comes down onto the lower pedestal, which is up here somewhere. Yeah, there you go. We have this one here, and then we also have where is it? We have this one here. That's the one I was looking for. There it is. Okay. And then finally, if you want it really, really bright and attract every mosquito in Valencia, then we can turn the dome lights on fully bright. So there you go. We've got plenty of lighting. Okay. Next thing we need to do is check the parking brake and check the parking brake pressure. Now, at the moment, so that's a lot of lighting. So I'm going to turn the dome light off, and I'm going to turn the map light off. I'm going to turn that off and stick with that. That's pretty bright because it's not dark yet, so we don't need to go crazy on the lighting. So there we go. Right, part brake pressure. Let's do this. So, part brake at the moment is off because the chocks are in. So the FCOM is saying to us, turn the brake on and check the brake pressure. Now, if we go to the system page, we can see one of the problems that we've got. There's the status page. We can see we've got a brake Y FCOM. Okay, so what that means is that at the moment there is no pressure in the parking brake, and you can actually see ACU press is on 0. So when I turn the brakes on, try again, Ben. There you go. Okay, so as you can see, we've got a bit of a problem here because I put the brakes on, but we don't have any brake pressure. So as soon as they remove the chocks, then this aeroplane is going to start rolling away. So the FCOM says, if required, use the electric pump on the yellow hydraulic system to recharge the brake accumulator. So, by the way, if I hit recall, that brings back the fault. So, just to let you know, the way that it works with this aeroplane is you can clear a fault like that, and then that takes you back to the doors page and the main ECAM. The fact that we've got SIS lit up here means that there's some stuff to see in the system page, and as you can see, there's a bunch of stuff not working. Partly this is because they're switched off, but this problem here, so if we hit recall for 2 seconds, we'll get any cancelled memos back, and we've got a nav TCAS fault. That's not a problem because the TCAS and the nav system's not enabled yet, but we've got a brake Y ACU low pressure, and that's this brake system here, so we've got to fix this. So up on the overhead, what we're going to do is we're going to turn on the yellow electric pump. If we go to the hydraulic page, you can see now that the yellow hydraulic system is energizing itself. PTU, which is the famous barking dog in the Airbus, is sending the hydraulic power across to the green system, and it's energizing them both. And you'll see, if you were eagle-eyed, that the ACU pressure, which is over here, is now in the green. So we've got brake pressure to the brakes and to the brake system, which is great. And as you can see now that the ECAM Y low pressure memo has gone, and in fact we can clear that and hit recall, and it's gone. Beautiful. All right. Now the other thing. All right. So we're all good. I know. Let's go back up. Let's turn that off. It needs a couple of presses. Whoops. There you go. Right, so we've done that. So now we have the park brake set, and we've got pressure, which is excellent. Okay, so we've got the APU on, we've checked the brakes. Next thing we want to do is check the flap position. So the flaps are up and the flap indicator is 0. Speed brake lever, speed brakes need to be retracted, not extended. Probe and window heat needs to be on auto, which it is. We want to extinguish all the white lights. Now, we don't want to do this, I'm told, until all the fuel is on board. So I'm going to refer to my flight plan from Valencia to Ibiza. And according to the flight plan, we need 4,673 kilos of fuel. So let's get that loaded. Hold down the bright button. There you go. Takes a few seconds. You can't actually turn off the McDo. You can't actually turn it off in the A320. All you can do is dim them. They're always on. Whenever the airplane is powered, they're always on. And they do take a while to come on, so you've got to really hold that button down for a while. So let's go to options. Lots of different things here that we can talk about forever, but let's just get going with the main thing for now, which is fuel. So 4,673. We're going to be using the APU, so I'm going to ask the fueler for, let's say, 4,710. Alright, that gives a little bit of fuel to run the APU as well. 4,673. He's put 4,710 on, so I'm happy with that. Excellent. And then while we're down here, we might as well load the passengers as well. So lots of different ways you can do that. You can either load them row by row, as you can see. You can put the crew in, you can put the OA, OB, OC, and you can put all the baggage in separately. If you are feeling a little bit lazy, like me, then you can just simply load the zero fuel weight straight in, and I'm going to do that. And we've got that on the sheet, which is 54.4. So that gives us 27, 27, 29, and then this much baggage. Okay, great. Now I'm going to leave that on the payload page, and you'll see why shortly. Right, over here, let's go to the FMGC page. And we're seeing GPS primary lost, and there's a good reason for that we'll talk about in a second. So, back to the FCOM, all white lights out. We've got the fuel on board, so we can turn the white lights out. Crossbleed needs to be on auto. Crossbleed is on the PAX page, which is here, and that's on auto. Zone temperature selectors, so it is pretty cool. So, sorry, it is pretty warm. So let's get them turned down a little bit, and let's get the PAX on high, just to get them going. Obviously, that doesn't do anything at the moment because the APU bleed isn't on to run the PAX, but we're going to get to that in a moment. Cargo heat we're going to leave because it's over here and it's in the middle. We're just going to leave that on auto. We're just checking that we don't have any electric faults apart from the gens, which we do, Gen 1 and Gen 2, which we'd expect because the engines are shut down. And then down here, ECAM, press the recall button. Alright, nav TCAS fault, that's because we don't have the IRSs aligned yet. Door page, check the oxygen. We're looking for 1500 psi on the older aeroplanes. On the newer aeroplanes, 1000 psi or above. We've got 1650, so we're fine. Hydraulics. Okay, the level is the green marker here, and they are all fine. If they weren't fine, then the airplane would tell us. Finally, engine display. We're looking for the oil quantity to be above 9.5, and it's 17.5, and anything else that looks unusual. So if the oil temperature was 0 or something weird, but that all looks absolutely fine. Okay, next part is the walk around. We're not going to do that because we've kind of already done it. I'm pretty happy that Flight Sim Labs have given us an aeroplane that works. Everything's on. There's nothing fallen off it. The brakes are fine. The tyres are fine. There's nothing hanging off the wings. Everything is good. So we get now into the pre-flight setup. So gear pins and covers. The gear pins are things that they stick into the gear. So when the gear is being worked on, or if the airplane's being towed around, that the gear doesn't collapse when the hydraulics are not pressurized. The gear pins and covers are on board and they're stowed. We want to test the flight recorder. So we set the ground control to auto. Now what this does is the cockpit voice recorder in the A320 generally only works. I've got a few different answers to this. Some people say it's with the beacon, some people say it's when the engines are started. Doesn't really matter which one, because if you press the ground control button to on, then the cockpit voice recorder will record all of the setup on the ground. Most airlines like you to have that turned on, because then obviously if you miss something during a pre-flight setup and then you crash because you haven't set the flaps, then all that will be recorded on the cockpit voice recorder. So they want you to set that to on. Hold the CVR test down and you'll hear that low frequency signal, and then you would erase that, and then that's it. Evac, we want to make sure that this is on captain. This is who can set off the evacuation. So that's the captain and the purser. So there's a button in the cabin which the cabin crew can set the evac off. We want to set that onto captain. And then last thing up here pretty much is set the IRSs. So we want to turn them to nav and wait for on-bat to go out. And we do it in the sequence 1, 2, 3. So there's 1 on bat, 2 on bat, and 3 on bat. Alright, so we should see down here IRS or IR in a line 6 minutes, so that's right. And then this GPS primary lost will either vanish, or we can clear it, and it will say GPS primary when it's working. Right, let's get back to the FCOM. So we've done the IRSs, and now it just talks about setting the exterior lights. So it'd be a good idea at this point to set the nav lights. 2 sets of nav lights, by the way. There's 1 and there's 2, and the reason for that is because you can't actually fly without the nav lights, and it's a little bit embarrassing if one system fails that you can't fly because of a light bulb. So they have a second system, so we can set it either between 1 or 2. I find out which. I think generally you'll fly with it on 1. I don't know whether they alternate. I don't know. I'll find that out, because it'd be quite interesting to know. Seatbelt signs, we'll set that on because we've got passengers on board now. We want to set the no smoking sign to auto. I think that's left in auto all the time now. I have a feeling that it's left on all the time. We want to set the emergency exits to arm, and they run from batteries, and if we leave them to on, if you leave them in on, then they are now on in the cabin, and they're using the batteries. If we leave them in arm, it gives them an opportunity to charge up. Or is it the off that... I think when they're off, they charge. I think that's it. When they're in arm, they don't. I'm not entirely sure. Don't quote me on that. So they're the emergency lights. At the moment they're off. On obviously turns them on in the cabin, and arm turns them to arm. So in the event of the aeroplane losing all electrical power, the emergency lights will come on. Pretty important that they're turned off at the end of the day, because as soon as we depower the aeroplane, they will come on, and they will be on all night long, and they'll run the batteries down, so you'll get in trouble. So make sure that they're turned off at the end of the day. Alright, next, landing elevation set to auto. That's in auto, so we are happy with that. And then the air conditioning pack flow. Right, well, we need to get the APU bleed on for this, so let's get the APU bleed on. And because we're good boys, we don't want to run the air conditioning and the external air conditioning, so let's ask them to disconnect that. And the APU is running as well, so I can turn the external power off, and I can ask them to remove that as well. I'm going to leave the chocks in for now. Alright, so we've got the packs on high. We've got them cooling down quite nicely. Probably a good opportunity now to close the door, close the windows. So let's pull the pin up and close those because we want to cool the flight deck down now. So close that, we get the red ring, beautiful. Okay, so we've got the packs on high, we've got the air conditioning on, cruise supply, that's the oxygen cruise supply, let's turn that off. And let's just have a quick check to make sure that there's nothing we've forgotten on the overhead. Everything there looks pretty good. The gens are still off because the engines are not running. Packs are now on. The CVR ground is on. And exterior lights are set. Seatbelt signs are on. All looks good. We need to check the batteries again. And this is just to check that the batteries themselves are charging. So what we do is we pull up the electrical page. Let me clear the status page, electrical page. There you go. And we need to turn the batteries off one by one. And the FCOM says check that the currents are below 60 amps and decreasing within 10 seconds. So we turn number 1 off and then turn it back on. Okay, didn't go above 60 and it is decreasing, so that looks good. So let's let it settle down. And then the number 2, below 60 and within 10 seconds it's decreasing. So the electrical system in the A320 is actually fairly straightforward. We can see at the moment the APU gen is coming here. Just follow the green arrows and you can see that that is powering AC2. And then Gen 1 and Gen 2 are on 0 because the engine's not running yet. So that all looks good. Cool. Let's clear that. Press that again, I think, to clear it. There you go. And that goes back to the door page. Cool. Next thing to do is engine fire test. So hold it in. Now in the real aeroplane, as soon as you let go of this button, the test will go off. But in the sim, as soon as you move your mouse away, it will stay down, which is quite useful because you've got to look down. So we get master warn. Let's just silence that. And as you can see down here on the ECAM, we got a bunch of instructions about what to do. So fire push button, agent 1, agent 2, press the clear button because we have the little arrow, take us to page 2, evac, master switch. So that all looks good. And then look down here, just to the right hand side of the speed brake lever, we should be seeing fire on engine number 1, which we are. So that's great. So now we can release that. Same with engine 2. Cancel the bell. That all looks good. That all looks good. And fire. So that is the engine 2 fire test complete. Audio switching panel. Just want to make sure that that is on normal. I'm not going to be using any ATC or anything like that today. Airfield data. So we need to know runway in use and the QNH. So lots of different ways you can do that. Obviously in the sim you could just hit B if you want to be pretty lazy about it. But I'm going to set 1012. And I'll just hit B just to make sure. Yeah, that is 1012. Just checking. It's already set the standby. Again, the standby you can do yourself as well, which is quite nice. And they're all independent as well. Well, actually, the FO and the captains are linked. So I think if I change one, oh no, they're not linked. Okay, that's cool. All right, I have to confess, I sometimes just press B, just because I can't be bothered going off all around the flight deck and doing them all. So, as a little tip, so you can set them all separately, or hit B, and they will all sync with one another. It's a little cheat to make life easier for you. ATC clearance, we'll get that in a moment. Initialize the ACARS. ACARS not modeled on this aeroplane currently. Now it's time to dive into the FMS. So, first thing we want to do is we're going to start with the FMGC menu, and they would start with the with this page. It's called Data. In the real aeroplane, you would go to Data, and you would go to Aircraft Status, and that takes you to this page. And we just want to check that the nav data is valid. So today is the 17th of August, so it is valid until today. And we just want to make sure we've got the right airplane, A320-200 with the CFM 56.5B4 engines, which we have. So that all looks good. Next thing we want to do is make sure that we don't have any nav aids which were tuned by the previous crew and have stored into the nav database that we don't need. Now the aeroplane has auto-tuned Valencia. We may want that, we may not, but that's fine. There's nothing else forced in there that we don't need. Flight plan. Okay, let's go to the init page, and let's throw in the flight plan. Now, again, there are different ways to do this. Okay, let's throw in a flight plan. Now, there are different ways you can get a flight plan. Different ways you can get a flight plan. There is SimBrief. There is PFPX. There's loads of utilities around. I'm using SimBrief because I find it really simple and really easy, and the flight plans are very accurate and they work. So it's entirely up to you. So we're going from Valencia, LEVC, and we're just going to do a really quick flight across to Ibiza. That's LEIB. So from and to. And the alternate, we're just going to come back to Valencia. If we need to return, there's no point flying off to somewhere else. This is something that I learned from my real pilot friends, is nothing makes passengers more angry than wanting to travel from Valencia to Ibiza and then ending up in Barcelona or Mallorca. Just bring them back to where you started, and then you can dump them, and they're not your problem. So we're just going to come back to Valencia if we can't land there. So we are Vueling 188. That's our flight number. Cost index is 27. Sounds pretty high, but we'll get there a bit quicker. And we're going to be cruising at 210. Now, my experience of SimBrief, it sometimes gives you a slightly optimistic cruise flight level. If we get held down, and I might want to hold us down a little bit just to show off some of the flight modes, we may not get to 210. So let's go to 19. And the top of cruise, it will populate the temperature, but you can also add your own. Mine is saying -14, but that's a little bit higher. So let's say -12. Okay, and then the init page is done. Press IRS init, and IRS init. So it's showing the lat 3929 5 north 000 28 5 west. And what we want to do now is just grab a chart out and just double check on the chart that that is where we think we are. I'm very confident that it is. Okay, so let's go to the flight plan page, LEVC and departure, and the winds are 150 at the moment, so let's go off runway 12. So runway 12, and we're going to Odzen. So we're on the Odzen 1 Bravo. Insert. And then from Odzen, we're going to take the Zulu 224 airway. And that's going to take us to Verot. And then it's the Vaden 1 DCN. Okay, so the arrival is now, there are two. There's a Zulu and a Yankee for the 24. Now, let me just check the chart. One of them will be the one connected to the star, and the other one will be for a procedural approach. So let me just have a quick check of the chart and make sure that we're going to land on the right one. So it's the 24. Okay, 24 Zulu starts at Bebby's, and the 24 Yankee starts overhead. So I think we're coming from, I think it's the Zulu. So let's try that. Insert. We're coming in on the, what did I say the star was? I said it was the VA1 DCN. Okay. VA1 DCN. There you go. And then we insert that. And then let's just have a quick look through and make sure. Yeah, there you go. There's Bebby's. So that looks about right. And now the FCOM is saying, have a quick step through the flight plan and make sure that it all makes sense. So let's do that. And we'll turn on the constraints. So here we go. Let's open that. And then let's just step through it. So EC2 intercepts, Odson, Verut, and there's Babbies, and then it's IBA 22, IBA 12, 22, IBA 60, and then down to the runway. And then the go around is till now at 3,000 on hold. Alright, that looks good. So, let's put that back to arc, and let's press flight plan. That takes it back to the top. And that's all done. Right, so we've done the flight plan. IRS is aligned. The final thing that we want to do in terms of the departure is just set the nav aids. Now, let's have a quick look at the chart for Valencia. So we're doing the SID off 1-2, aren't we? Okay, so VLC, which we could do with. We've got that tuned. And we're doing Odson, so there's a couple of other VORs, but that's for departures to the north and the south. We're not going that way, so I don't think we need to. I don't think we need to tune anything else. That is all good. Okay, so now we'll go back to the init page, and let's go back to the init B page. Let's do a few things here. So let's tell it the block fuel, which at the moment is 4658 or 4660, because the aeroplane is rounding it up. So the block fuel is 4.7. And then zero fuel weight, center of gravity. We can find this in the payload page, which is going to be here. So 54.4, 25.1. If you can't be bothered, type it all in. Helpfully, it populates there. Hey. What you'll see now is the aeroplane will now load a bunch of fuel predictions. And what we can do, if we want to, is just cross-check those against what our flight plan is saying. So we have route reserve 5%, which the aeroplane is calculating, and we have trip time is saying 24 minutes, and it's saying 1.2. Now the flight plan is saying 28 minutes and 1.497. It sometimes can be different. The aeroplane tends to want to send you in a straight line. Alternate, come back. It's saying 18 minutes to come back. I'm going to change that. I'm going to change the alternate fuel to 1.2. I'm going to change final reserve to 1.1. There you go. Okay, and then we've got 200 kilos for taxi, so that all looks pretty good to me. So it's saying the min destination fuel on board 2.4, so adding 1.2 and 1.1, that's 2.4, yeah, so that's all correct. And then finally, we can put a headwind or a tailwind in for the whole flight. So the average wind is 299 at 19, so kind of easiest way to look at this is just to zoom out on the flight plan, and let's open that up. So the wind is 299. All right, so the wind is blowing from this direction, and we're flying away from it. So that to me looks like a tailwind. So tail wind, and the flight plan says the average wind is 19 knots. Tailwind of 19. Cool. Alright, so that's done. And then the final thing that we have to do here is to go to the perf page, and we need to set the flaps for takeoff and set the V-speeds and a couple of other things. So we're going to go flap 1, and there is in the documentation a handy little chart. So 25.1, so it's, I don't know, up 0.8, shall we say? Yeah. So up 0.8. And then flex, we can pick a flex. It's 31 degrees outside at the moment. It's got to be higher than that or it won't work. So let's say I don't know, flex of 35. I mean, we're not going to be very heavy. Transalt 6000, that's set. And then the where are we at the moment? We are at 260 feet above the ground. We want the thrust reduction, the acceleration, and the engine out to be 1,000 feet above ground level. So we are let's call it 260. So 1260, 1260, and 1260. And now we can populate V speeds, 31, 31, 32. Alright, and then that is the McDo done. Alright, let's get some doors closed and let's get the hell out of Dodge. Now, hey, just before we do that, here's a couple of things. Now, I'm told by my man that the hydraulic system, the yellow hydraulic system powers the cargo doors. Now, do you remember when we were playing around outside and they open really slowly? So let me let's have a little play around with these and see what happens. So let's close that. Wow, there you go. Look at that. And you can actually see the hydraulic level is increasing because the pump's kicked in to close the door. Cool. Let's have a look outside. Do you remember the aft cargo compartment didn't want to open, or only opened really slowly? Well, now we've got the hydraulics online. Look how quickly it goes. And the same with the bulk as well. Remember the bulk just opened a little crack? Well, now it's open all the way. Nice. Very, very nice indeed. Alright. So let's close the forward. And once again, you see the electric pump kick in. And dispatcher's given us a load sheet. So we say thank you very much, Mr. Dispatcher. And let's close the front door as well. And then finally, let's set the parking brake, which it is, and let's ask him to disconnect the ground shocks at the front. Alright, so all the doors are closed, and we should see that. The reason, by the way, why we're seeing slide over the wings is because the wing slides in the A320, well, all of the Airbus narrow body family at least, the slides are armed all the time. They're not disarmed. We'll see the rest of the doors will arm once we get going. All right, so we're done with the ground control menu now, so we can go over to the FMGC menu or the McDo. And the way we want to leave this is we want flight plan on Matey's side and we want takeoff on my side. Right, we're not quite done yet. We've got to set the speed bugs on the standby horizon. Now, this one is a little bit different to the ones that are in the aeroplanes that my guys fly. We've got a little select button here, and then we use the plus and minus buttons. So we want to set that one. It says set V2 and green dot. Now, V2 is 132. So let's set V2 to 132. Let's press that and turn it on, and let's press minus. That should take us to the next one, which it does. And green dot, well, green dot is kind of clean, so 198. Okay, and then we'll select that on, and then the rest of them can be, let's turn that off and turn that off, and speed bugs are set. Beautiful. It talks about setting cruise speeds for the climb, and I'm not going to bother with that. You can pre-select a speed. We don't need to do any of that on the departure today. It's saying set the barrows, which we've done. Check that the flight directors are on. Now the flight directors, if you turn them off, you can see that it dumps you back into speed and heading and VS. If you turn them back on, then it will dash the speed, dash the heading, and we also need to put the initial altitude in. So let's do that now. So the there's no level off here. Let me just check the chart and see if there's an initial height that we need to fly. There's no minimum altitude that we need to be at, so we're going to make up our own today. We're going to say 6,000 feet. Okay, and then we want that in arc, and we want that in 10. So they call this arc 10, and we want that one in arc 10. Now it says if the departure direction is more than 70 degrees, if the direction changes more than 70 degrees after takeoff, then put that in nav, and obviously that allows you to see behind you. So if we're taking off and then making a turn and then going behind where we are now, then we would need to see behind us, but we don't because we're going straight ahead. So we're going to leave that in arc, which is good. And then it checks in the FCU that we've got the speed window is dashed, that we're in heading or nav, we're in nav, and then we've got the initial altitude set, and then the vertical speed is also dashed. Now, talks about checking the oxygen. Now, that is down here. Oxygen mask currently not modelled, or to the best of my knowledge is not modelled yet. Loudspeakers need to be on. Loudspeakers are down here. That is set to max, so we're happy with that. Radio panel talks about setting. Again, I'm not going to bother with this too much. Let's just make sure we can hear what the cabin crew are doing. Whoops. Come on, Ben. There you go. I'm not going to worry too much about the radios. And then it says check there's no flags. So there's no flags. Everything looks pretty good to me. We haven't got anything over on the overhead that's going to cause us a problem. Weather radar. We need to make sure that the weather radar is off and off. And the switching panel, we need to make sure that they're all in norm, which they are. Check the STS page again, and you can see the status is normal, so the aeroplane is happy. It says that we need to check that the landing elevation is correct, so press the press button, and that's 0, and that sounds about right because Ibiza is an island and the runway is pretty much sea level, so that is correct. Thrust levers are at idle, and in fact what we can do is just push them forward and just check they're connected and they're all going to do the right things. Engine masters need to be off, mode selector is on normal, and the parking brake is set. So let's set the squawk. So they've given us a squawk of 4122, and that is on standby, and that is on standby, so that is good. I want to check the gravity gear extension, and that's this one here, and that's stowed. Load sheet we got, takeoff data was set, so now it's seats and harnesses and rudder pedals and all the rest of it. So let's move ourselves forward a little bit. Let's move ourselves forward. I'm going to stow that because I'm going to be taxiing, so I don't want that in the way. The FO can leave his out for the time being. We've got takeoff on my side, we've got flight plan on Matey's side, external power check off, which it is. We'll turn the packs down to norm now. Now we run the before start checklist down to the line, so let's do that. So the cockpit prep is complete. The gear pins and covers are removed. The signs are on and auto. ADIRs are on nav. Fuel quantity, we have 4620 on board, and the flight plan requires 4673. We were running APU for a little while, but that's absolutely fine. And the barrier ref is set 1012, 1012, and 1012. That is the before start checklist down to the line.